Hey guys, Chris here, and I'm a Ukrainian Canadian. Today is September 8th, 2024, and let's get to the map updates and news happening in Ukraine and Russia, shall we? So let's discuss first the Pokrovsk Chasiv front line, a difficult one for the Ukrainians because we know that the Russians have been continuing with their momentum here and they've continued with their pushes, but there's some good news. And let's first cover the city of New York, the eastern sector of this front line. You can see that the Azov Brigade was able to counterattack in the last few days in the area of New York and was able to regain the lost positions, kind of the city center of the city. I've mentioned this in the past, guys, but I'm not surprised because um, I'm anticipating that the Ukrainians will be able to hold to these large cities and settlements. They are very capable at defending. There's multiple examples in the past with Avdiivka, Chasiv Yar, Bakhmut, where the Russians simply do not perform well in urban combat, and their losses become astronomical compared to the Ukrainians once they start reaching large cities. And so I think that New York, Toretsk, and Pokrovsk will be very, very bloody for the Russians. But everything that is outside of that, small little villages and open fields, of course, the Russians will be able to break through because there's no real Ukrainian defenses here, unfortunately. But you can see that the Ukrainians are also able to counterattack and break off the momentum. And so this is excellent news. However, you can see that the less good news is that in the south of Pokrovsk, that is more in the Velske, the Russians here are forming a small pocket, which I'm anticipating them to close off in the next few days, perhaps weeks. And if there are Ukrainian soldiers present here, they must leave right now because there's absolutely no point in holding these positions here. You can see that there's no villages, it's all open fields, and so likely that the Ukrainians will retreat back into Kurakhivka or Kurakhove in the next few days because there's just no point in holding this area anymore here. So you can see how the Russians still have some momentum in directions where there is pretty much nothing to defend. But the good news is that the Institute for the Study of War confirmed that the Ukrainian military has brought reinforcements. About 5 brigades came to reinforce Ukrainian positions in this front line, meaning that in the next few weeks we should be seeing a stabilization of the front line. And of course, the Russians will simply not have a walk in the park in Pokrovsk and Mirnograd. Right now, the last few days, actually, the Ukrainians have stabilized the situation, and the battles are mostly ongoing around Selidove. So this is kind of a small little city, if we may call it, that the Russians are trying to break through, but for the last few days, they haven't been able to. So there's going to be very harsh battles ongoing around Selidove and also the outskirts north of Pokrovsk. So that's the situation here. Additionally, south of Pokrovsk, we have Vuhledar, which is, of course, a Ukrainian fortress. And in Vuhledar, this is an area that we're going to keep a close watch because the Russians are trying to push on the flanks, on the eastern flanks and on the western flanks of Vuhledar. For the last few weeks, you can see that the Russians have been able to gain some ground. As you can see, they're trying to push towards Vodyane and also on the western kind of flank of Vuhledar. So the Ukrainians cannot allow the Russians to encircle them around Vuhledar because this will put them at a critical position. And Vuhledar is key to holding this kind of southern sector in Donetsk and Zaporizhia. So we'll keep a close watch here. Now let's go further north in Luhansk and Kharkiv. There's an area of concern here around the Kupiansk direction. You can see how the Russians are trying to break through in the Pishachne sector. And so for the last few days, you can see that the Russians have made small gains, trying to get as close as possible towards the Oskil River. And likely that their target is Senkove, trying to reach that bridge so they can effectively then start transferring troops to the western side of the Oskil River. And this would put the Ukraine positions kind of in a bad situation between the kind of northern Kupiansk area and the southern Kupiansk area, but it wouldn't be anything catastrophic because there's still other means to reinforce Ukraine positions here. But this is an area of concern, so we need to keep a close watch here and hoping that the Ukrainians will be able to answer back somehow here. However, some good news is in the northern Kharkiv sector. the Ukrainians were able to counterattack around the area of Liptse. So this is the northern Kharkiv incursion by the Russians that they begun back in May, trying to create their buffer zone around Kharkiv and Vovchansk, but it didn't really work out. So the Russians are kind of holding off to about 100 to 150 square kilometers. You can see that the Ukrainian forces have counterattacked in the last few days, and they were able to regain some ground north of Liptse, which is good news because this is driving the Russians further back into their own border, which is what we want to see. So overall, the situation here is more or less stable. And last but not least, as well, we know that the Russians have transferred a lot of troops from this front line to Kursk, which is also allowing the Ukrainians to pull out some effective small counterattacks here. So with regards to Kursk, there aren't many changes. The situation is more or less the same. The Ukrainians are just trying to consolidate their positions, reinforce these positions as well. And they're concentrating more or less their attacks on the western side of Kursk, this area they were able to cut off completely. And so the Russians here in the Glushkova district are stuck. They're being attacked constantly by the Ukrainians. You can see that the Ukrainians constantly continue pushing here slowly but surely. So this is good news because, of course, first time ever that since World War II, Russia has lost territory. So this is good news. Overall, you can see that compared to what the Russians were able to gain in 2024 has been far less compared to what the Ukrainians were able to gain in 2024. So this is kind of a balancing act by the Ukrainians as well. Additionally, before I end this video, some good news with regards to Russian ammunition depots. They're on fire. So overnight, the Ukrainians were able to destroy another very important ammunition depot located in Voronezh. So we're kind of far away, about 100 to 150 kilometers away from the front line. So this is in the area of Voronezh. And if you guys may remember, 2 weeks ago, the city of Ostrohotsk was struck by the Ukrainians, and there was a very important ammunition depot that was destroyed here. And so just 20 kilometers north of Ostrohotsk, the Ukrainians were able to destroy another ammunition depot that is located, I believe, in Soldatskoye. Now, I just need to find it where it is exactly. I believe it is somewhere here. Yes, right here, Soldatskoye. So overnight, the Ukraine struck another ammunition depot, and apparently this one had North Korean missiles stored, which is, I mean, super valuable missiles for the Russians. These were ballistics that were transferred by the North Koreans, and allegedly the Ukrainians were able to destroy all of them. Based on satellite images, this entire area right now is on fire, which is kind of interesting because it kind of indicates that the Russians have concentrated a certain, a network of ammunition depots here in Voronezh. So the Ukrainians were able to pinpoint that and destroy all of them, which is excellent news, and it will further reduce Russian capabilities, likely in the northern sector here, around the northern Kharkiv, Kupiansk area. So that is excellent news. I hope you guys enjoyed this map update. It was very brief, but we've covered pretty much most of the front line. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Thank you for your support, and Slava Ukraini.